Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our webinar today. More reviews, less admin, automating guest feedback with HiJiffy and GuestRevu. So today we'll show you how guest communications and guest feedback are actually two parts of the same journey, from the first interaction to post insights that drive more bookings. Let's go over the agenda for today. On the agenda today, we have an overview of what is HiJiffy and GuestRevu. We'll have some time for a quick demo, and we'll cover how to maximize WhatsApp to gather reviews, as well as the importance of guest feedback on the booking cycle. We'll also have some time for Q&A in the end, so please feel free to drop your question directly in the chat here on the webinar screen. I'll be one of your hosts today. I'm Fabio, Customer Success Executive at HiJiffy. And joining me today, I have Paul from GuestRevu. Handing it over to you, Paul.
Thanks, Fabio. So yeah, I'm the Head of Commercial Growth and Strategic Partnerships here at GuestRevu. I've been here for just under 3 years now, but I've worked in hospitality tech for over a decade, selling all manner of systems to hoteliers.
Thank you, Paul. It's time now to learn what is HiJiffy. So right now, hoteliers receive messages everywhere. We have hoteliers receiving WhatsApp messages, messages through their booking platforms such as Booking.com, Expedia, their social media, their website chats, and their emails. And of course, managing all of these conversations create delays, inconsistent answers, also operational pressure on the hotelier side. HiJiffy is a guest communications hub. We bring all of these conversations into one single centralized place. And on top of that, we have our own AI that has been built specifically for hospitality. And we allow the automation of repetitive interactions. This means that ultimately hoteliers get and guests get faster responses, which leads to a higher satisfaction, more automation that reduces workload, and more personalization, which leads also to more conversion. Just to let you know that, of course, we are not here to replace human interaction. We are automating those repetitive moments so that then the staff can focus on the high value guest experiences. Let's see how this fits across the entire guest journey. So we are present on, let's call it the booking stage, where we connect all of these channels and we enable answering frequently asked questions across all of these channels in just seconds. On top of that, with our chat-based booking, where we connect with the hotelier's booking engine, we are also able to enable growth in terms of direct bookings. We also enable the hoteliers to promote their services or any promotions directly in our own communication channels, so the widget on the website. Then we introduce the second part of the guest journey. We can then, of course, at this stage, we connect with the hotelier's PMS, their property management system, and we enable WhatsApp campaigns. So in this specific moment, we create, of course, touch points throughout the whole guest journey to enable several things such as pre-check-in, creating, of course, a moment where or a channel where the guests can ask any questions and have it answered automatically, also for handling in-house requests to ensure that only the right requests or the requests that need interaction or intervention from the staff reach the staff. We're also enable the capability of upsell through these campaigns, and of course the capability of collecting feedback throughout the guest journey. And this is also where GuestRevu enables us by, of course, linking these two connections to allow us to send these specific forms and GuestRevu's forms to the guests in a seamless way on WhatsApp channel. In a nutshell, we automate the repetitive moments across the journey so that the staff can focus on meaningful guest interactions. I will now hand it over to Paul so he can walk us through what is GuestRevu.
Perfect. Thanks, Fabio. So yeah, GuestRevu is hospitality's best of breed guest intelligence platform. We've won numerous hotel tech awards over the recent years, including the best online reputation tool and best survey tool. What GuestRevu does is essentially we turn those guest insights, whether it be from an online review or a guest satisfaction survey, into actionable data for hoteliers. So we try to remove the noise away from endless kind of comments and comment cards to the actual underlying points that can be changed to improve that guest experience. We are purposely built for the hospitality industry from the ground up. So it's not a generic piece of software that can kind of do this. We understand hotel language. We understand the data that those hoteliers need on a daily basis. And that's why we've built this kind of powerful analytical tool. The company, we've been around for over 10 years now. We process in excess of 2 million reviews every single month. We're deployed in over 120 countries globally now with over 12,500 users. So when we talk about reviews, a lot of people, when I start conversations off, always just assume that reviews come at the very end of the journey. So what we try to do is try to look at the holistic guest journey and see where reviews play an impact. And it's right from the very beginning. So, you know, with those guests that are looking at those OTAs, looking at your own website, one of the first social proofing points is the guest review. So they will look at the existing ones, typically the first kind of 2 to 3 pages on those platforms. And then they will start forming their opinions of whether they want to deep dive more or just move on. So when we look at that journey, so I'm going to assume from the point of this cycle here that we're going to start from the guest has made the booking. So they've looked at those reviews online already. They make the booking. So they enter their details. They go into the property management system. We get those notifications come through via the integrations. That then allows GuestRevu to perform both pre, in, and post-stay surveys. So why are those 3 important? So pre-stay surveys, obviously, it's where we can start setting that expectation for the guest early doors. It's where you can get to know the reasons that those guests have chosen your hotel. Is it a special occasion like an anniversary? Do we need to make any special accommodations, you know, in that guest stay that will enhance their perception of the stay and ultimately lead to a better review on the back end? The guest then will check in. Obviously, all of the systems are working hard behind the scenes, a bit like a duck's legs under the water. You know, everything's nice and calm towards the guest, but everything's powering away below the surface. We can also facilitate very short kind of in-stay surveys via QR codes or WhatsApp messages via HiJiffy, which allow you to kind of nip any little niggles in the bud. You know, is the room too cold? Is there a draft? Is the mini bar not being filled up or cleaned properly? You know, those kind of little insights that guests tend to hold on to the point of checkout. And then obviously it's too late to be able to do anything about it to enhance that experience. The guests then will ultimately check out of the property, and then we can automate these survey touch points. So typically via email, kind of a day later, or with the integration with HiJiffy, you know, kind of straight away via WhatsApp. What then happens is the guest then leaves those reviews via the forms that we'll show you shortly, but we also have integrations to the likes of Google, TripAdvisor to push those reviews to them platforms, enhancing a hotel's visibility online. We collate all that data, whether it's been left by our survey form or via, you know, native means like on Airbnb or Booking.com, Expedia. We bring that all into one centralized platform, which allows hoteliers to be able to respond to all of those reviews, you know, from the platform. It will link out to the various channels. But again, designed to kind of alleviate those time precious kind of moments where somebody has to log into 5 different internets and start searching the web for everywhere they may have been mentioned for the previous day. Hotels get their alerts coming through once feedback's received, and then we now have to analyze the review. So what we'll show you shortly is how GuestRevu has designed our AI tool to enable you to do the tool to do the heavy lifting. So somebody doesn't have to sit there and read, you know, 80 reviews a day and then try to work out what those key themes and trends are. We do it all for you with a few clicks. Obviously, this data then has to drive change. So what we do is we are able to produce it in such a way that it makes hoteliers' lives in terms of decision-making simpler, whether that be, you know, rediverting funds for a renovation, you know, from one area to another area of the hotel, because actually guest data says that there's nothing wrong with the restaurant, but people are saying that the decor in the rooms are very tired and dated. Or it might be changing a rate plan because people are seeing that bed and breakfast rates are exceptional value for money, but your dinner bed and breakfast rates are getting slammed with negative reviews. And it's those kind of changes that hoteliers are able to make with the data to back it up that then leads to an increase in overall in that online reputation, because the next guest that checks in doesn't have that same kind of slightly negative experience, which then completes this cycle by encouraging more guests to enter the booking flow at the very beginning and complete that cycle.
Great, thank you so much, Paul. Very, very interesting. I think it's time now to see it live in action. So I will just start sharing my screen. And perfect. So everything starts directly in HiJiffy's console on our campaigns manager. So right from the campaigns manager, the hotelier can configure a new recurring campaign. So you'll be able to select in what moment the campaign will be sent to which specific guest. So you're able to target specific guests. And this is all based in the data that we receive from the hotelier's PMS. It's very important to mention that, of course, you can customize the message, and then we then connect with GuestRevus to ensure that everything is linked and ready to be sent to the guests. So let's say that at this stage, we already have a campaign configured, then we configure it to be triggered, let's say 24 hours after the guest has checked out. In this specific moment, let's say we are already 24 hours after we've checked out, a message will be triggered via WhatsApp. And in the backend, what will happen is that we will get then this data from the PMS, so the reservation data from the hotelier's PMS, and we will communicate with GuestRevu to ensure that we fetch the specific link for that guest with the specific form to be sent to, let's say, that specific guest in that specific moment on the right channel, which would be right now WhatsApp. We'll show you then how everything looks live. And so the message will be, of course, triggered, and this is fully customizable. This means that you're able to fully customize this message. You're also, as an hotelier, able to add, for example, the guest's first name or last name here, so it seems even more personal to the guest itself. Then, of course, as I said, you can fully customize the message, and the guest is triggered or is shown the button that will then lead to GuestRevus form. This page actually is usually skipped because we get the information from the integration, so it will be already pre-filled with the guest details. And then this is, I would say, the form itself, but I think that Paul can give more insights on the GuestRevu side on this part of the journey.
Perfect. Yeah. And on this form, obviously, this is one of our standard templates. So we would be able to customize these by property, you know, different images, the questions. You can ask as many or as few questions you want. There are a few questions personally we recommend to keep in. So the ones on screen right now are typically the ones that we recommend to keep in, because they will actually help us pre-populate TripAdvisor reviews, you know, as part of the integration we have with them, which helps drive those reviews over to that platform. But apart from that, follow-up questions and things like that are all dictated to by what the hotel wants to ask those guests. So I'm going to assume that the survey's been filled in, and what I'm now going to do is I'm going to share my screen just so that we can show you the kind of back end, the back end of GuestRevu. Has that come through? I've got a black screen at the moment.
Not yet.
Let me just try that again. There we go. I'm not sure what happened there. Apologies. So this is the typical dashboard for GuestRevu. So in here, I'm going to gloss over quite a lot of this because obviously we don't have a lot of time today. And having worked, you know, with the product for a number of years, I could talk about this for a good hour or more, just going through the kind of key metrics. So what I'm going to focus on is that what happens after the reviews come in. So I won't dwell on the dashboard, but what we do is we see the reviews tab here, and this is where all the reviews will come in from the platform. So this is booking.com, Google, all of those channels, but also the surveys. So when we see the surveys come in, what we can do is we can click on the review here, and you'll see the full review coming in with the scores, with any kind of questions and feedback from those guests here. You can obviously reply to them. Now, one of the things that we have done and spent a lot of time on recently is the AI side of things. So what that will allow us to do is we do have AI management responses in the system now. So to either surveys or online reviews, we can use AI to basically create a customizable, personalized template for each individual guest. So with just a couple of clicks, you can click on here, you can generate, you can give it prompts. We could say things, like add a club special discount, for example, change the tones, hit generate, and then what it will do is it will change those reviews. So again, very, very bespoke kind of template driven reviews. Now, what I would say here as well, though, is we also believe that AI is never going to replace the human touch. So even though AI has written this, what we can start doing is we can start manually amending this before we send it out. So, you've got complete control over that response to the guest. So that's where you would see it here. But where GuestRevu's kind of AI power comes in is really kind of analyzing those reviews. So typically, and if you go historically, even way back to comment cards, when the cards were left in the rooms and people would manually write on them, somebody in the hotel would have to read them all, maybe create a spreadsheet, maybe documented it if time allowed. And we know that, hoteliers these days are donning many hats, within the property. So time is always of the essence. So what we've developed is our AI analytics tool, which does the heavy lifting. So it's going to read all of those reviews. It's going to analyze them for you. It's going to give you your top 3 performing areas. It'll give you 3 areas where some improvements may be needed in the hotel. What it will also do, though, is it's kind of overhauled the way that we look at sentiment and the guest wording. So we can detect emotions within the reviews. We can look at the positive mentions and the negative mentions, because obviously this is where, we all like nice things to be said about our properties, but real change only really comes from those negative reviews. And again, because we're talking about, kind of reducing the noise of here, this will obviously pick up every one of those themes. So what we can do is we have a minimum mentions button so that you can turn around and say, right, I want to ignore mentions where it's under 5 or under 6. So, those one unhappy guests that had the worst breakfast of their entire life, at a hotel, we can ignore that as an outlier and look at what's really affecting, the kind of biggest proportion of those guests. So that all comes in here. We also can do action items. So again, one of the biggest thing there was, and we said, those actionable insights. So with action items, what will happen here is the AI reads the reviews. It will then come up with suggestions for different departments within the hotel of how they can act up on that data. So, you'll see here, there's one for housekeeping, there's one for maintenance, etc., etc. So that's kind of where AI is doing a lot of the heavy lifting. We connect to over 50 of the major OTAs, in terms of review sources to bring that data in, alongside the surveys that we'll be sending out via the integration with HiJiffy. And as I mentioned, I could go through many things on this and take quite a long time to do so. So I think at that point, I'll probably hand back to you, Fabio, so that we can go through why reviews are important.
Thank you, Paul. Pretty cool take on your side, and thank you for handing it over. Let me just resume the presentation. So now we'll be covering how to maximize the WhatsApp Together reviews. So as we've seen also, HiJiffy helps hotels communicate at scale, and GuestRevu helps, of course, understand what guests actually think afterwards and across the whole guest journey. So we need to take into consideration that we should, of course, reach out to these guests on the right platform, so on the channels that they already are. So WhatsApp, it's one of those channels, and on the right timing, as we've seen. And thank you for sharing that, Paul. It's very important to gather feedback, not only after stay, but also during stay. So it's very important to take that in mind, but also after stay, it's very important to reach out to the guests in that specific moment where they are more, of course, keen to share feedback. And this could actually happen like 24 hours after they've checked out and they arrive safely at home. So we really need to ensure that the message gets there, so to the right audience, in the right time, in the right channel. Why use HiJiffy as a solution? So our solution and these WhatsApp campaigns, they trigger automatically. You have the possibility to fully customize these messages and choose when they will be sent and to who they will be sent. So there's, as we've seen, also a seamless handoff to GuestRevu. So the guests will receive the button or the link to the survey, and they will be quite immediately taken to the guest review so they can share your feedback. As a curiosity also, as a curiosity, WhatsApp messages, they have an open rate in hospitality industry between 90 and 98%, which compared, of course, to email open rates that hover around 20 to 25%. We are sure that we can reach more guests by using this channel and connecting with this channel. I would say that honestly, the sweet spot is actually combining both to get to as much guests as possible and to collect as many pieces of feedback as possible. Because after we collect this feedback, we can see that it directly impacts the booking decisions of travelers and future guests. And when we are talking about, of course, the impact on the booking cycle, we can mostly divide this part in three main areas. So before the booking, which is kind of the trust part, where we can see that 95% of travelers read reviews before booking, and and honestly, reviews are often the first interaction that future guests have with your hotel. Even before they visit their website, they are already, when they search for the hotel, reading reviews immediately. So the reputation is often seen before the website, which is why it's so important to manage your reputation online. Then it comes the comparison stage. So the comparison stage is a decision driver, because 33% of the guests or future guests, they change booking decisions after they read the reviews. So at this point, we have confidence beating price in this specific stage. And then, of course, these reviews, they also set expectations for the stay, because 93% of the travelers, they say that the reviews influence their booking decisions. So we need to ensure or have in mind that the reviews don't just influence choice. They shape expectations for the stay even before the arrival. Because if, let's say, a guest reads online that the staff at the hotel, they are very, very friendly, they will expect warmth on the hotel once they arrive. If they read that something didn't went so well with other people's experiences, they will arrive starting an alert stage, which is why it's so important to, of course, get as many feedback as possible. And also, it's very important to keep in mind that the feedback impacts decision and ultimately the expectation and the decision of booking that specific hotel.
Perfect. And then obviously reviews also have the power to affect the hotel's bottom line. So when you talk about how reviews can affect pricing, recent studies have shown that 76% of travelers are actually willing to pay more for a hotel stay when their review scores are higher. Okay. The other thing as well is this, there's a follow-up study on that also shows that hotels that were kind of consistently ranked in the top, when they increase their rates by anything up to 20%, whilst their review scores remained high, they also continued to see the highest click-through rates, which showed at that point in time that the pricing wasn't the driver, because the expectations for travel had already been set and socially proved, on the various platforms. Reviews also help to create that kind of virtuous cycle of bookings. So improved ratings attracts more guests. So there's a Cornell study that showed there that, that a 1% reputational increase can lead to an increase in the RevPAR by up to 1.42%. This was further expanded on by them and said that if you look at a 5-point scale, so your typical TripAdvisor 0 to 5, that raising by a single point, so going from a 3 to a 4, a 4 to a 5, allowed hotels to increase their rates by 11.2% without seeing a lot in occupancy, which is a great statistic. So as we can drive those reviews to those platforms to increase those scores, it can ultimately lead to greater rates. And obviously the same study also concluded that those kind of, the 1% kind of reputational increases also leads to a 0.89% in ADR and also an increase in occupancy. So it's a kind of self-fulfilling cycle that reviews are important at every stage of that guest journey, and getting to those reviews with the right message on the right platform at the right time is key to a successful kind of guest intelligence strategy.
Thank you so much, Paul. Now I think we still have some time for some Q&A. So we'll go over the questions that you've asked already, and feel free to ask more questions. We have roughly 5 minutes, but don't worry. If any of your questions, if we don't have time to reply to all of your questions, we will follow up via email after the webinar. So I do believe I have a question for you here, Paul. Let me just pull it up to the screen. Just a quick second. Okay. Question regarding the integration. Is it possible to have a custom flow in the form? For example, can we trigger different messages or actions in the form depending on whether guests give high or low rating?
Yeah, so thanks for the question. So yeah, so our guest surveys are kind of logic and trigger based. So if a guest, for example, says that the reception was a 1 out of 5, you can have logic built into the back end that then probes down with some deeper questions. So it's not just good enough to say, oh well, the reception was terrible, but what was it about the reception? Was it the speed of check-in? Was it the cleanliness? Was it the attitude of the receptionist? You are in complete control over those follow-up questions. We can also have logic triggers such as, did you use the gym, for example? And if it's a no, we don't need to ask any questions about the gym. So we would just move on through the survey. So we send basically the same base survey out to every single guest, but no two guests will always answer the same survey, in the sense of, some might score low, some might score high, some might have used a facility, some won't have. So you are in complete control. And when we build this up as part of the setup process, we will ask you, where do you want those logic questions to do? So I work with some very, very high-end 5-star properties where anything less than a 5 out of 5 is unacceptable. So they will ask those questions on a 4. I work with other hotels where they decide that they only want those extra questions on a 3 or maybe a 2. So there's a lot of flexibility within the surveys, but our onboarding team will work with you with the best practices, what's designed to get the most intelligence and ultimately drive more reviews for your property.
Cool, Paul. Thank you so much. Let's go to the next one. I don't believe this one is for me, right? Yeah, this one is for me, Paul.
Okay, yeah. So I was just reading it there, so I didn't see that one come in. So yeah, does the setup depend on a specific PMS? What if I change PMS? Do I lose the capability of sending guest review forms via WhatsApp?
Thank you for asking, Paul. No, actually, we connect with several PMSs. We integrate with several PMSs. There's a ton of possibilities to integrate with different PMSs. And the solution doesn't depend on a specific PMS. So if your tech stack changes in the meantime, we'll adapt, we'll update our connection with your existing PMS, and you will be able to continue to send these WhatsApp campaigns and, of course, keep working with HiJiffy and GuestRevu solution, as we've seen that they work so well together. So yes, the short answer is the setup does not depend on a specific PMS. And if you change your tech stack, we'll be able to connect with the new PMS and keep the solution active and working as it is. Great. Let us look at other questions.
There's a good one here. I can see this one here, so I'll pop that one up. I think this one's for me as well.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think this one will be for me as well, right? Yeah.
So can the systems identify which guests are eligible for a survey so we don't actually accidentally send a request to someone who had a cancelled booking?
Yes, actually, this comes directly from the first or on the live demo, the first step that I've shown, which is on our console. You will be able to completely configure and specify the trigger or which status that come from the PMS you want to reach. So let's say that you set up that you want this specific campaign with a guest review form to be sent after a guest has been checked out. So we will be able to link this configuration with your PMS status and the status for that specific reservation, and ensure that the campaigns are only sent to the specific target that you've configured during this campaign. So this is the way that we safeguard and then we ensure that we are not reaching guests that have, for example, a canceled booking, but this is, of course, expandable to other situations in which you may eventually not want to reach out to the guest for any particular reason.
And I think just to add to that, Fabio, as well, within GuestRevu, there's also safeguards. So from the guest profile, you've got exclusion rules and things like that you can put in place as well to ensure that the survey links aren't generated from our side for those guests that you don't want to survey.
Oh, great. So yeah, double security on both ends, the best possible. Amazing. I think that we reached the end of our Q&A. We still have other questions that we won't be able to answer right now, but we'll shortly follow up via email to answer all of those questions. So thank you so much for joining. We would love to showcase HiJiffy solution in depth. So please feel free to visit our website and book a demo directly with us. And Paul, if you want to say goodbye to the attendees today, please.
Yeah, no, I just want to thank everybody for attending. Thank you for having me here, Fabio. It's been a pleasure. And as I said, if anybody has any further questions from a guest intelligence feedback side of things, you can go to the website, guestrevu.com. There's links there to be able to book a demo with any member of our team that can show you it in a little bit more detail.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Paul, for joining me as well. And everyone have a great day. And thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.